Okay, so this is the opening part of my paragraph that I've now started with. So this is where we're now going to introduce the fact that obviously the soldier has just been shot. Okay, and now that's where we finished our final paragraph on yesterday, which is the one I've just uploaded and edited at the beginning of the video. So now we need to explain what's going to happen to our soldier. What emotions and feelings and physical things is he going through? So I'm looking to include expanded noun phrases, potential prepositions, conjunctions, similes, verb openers, and amplification in here. Now, there might be other skills that I've included in here as well, but those are the main ones I'm going to focus on for this paragraph. So the first part of my paragraph, immediately the lonely soldier realised the severity of the situation. The damp ruby patch on his friend's jacket began to grow larger by the second. His mud-spattered, bloody face drained of all colour, and his body went completely limp and still like a suffering, wilting flower. So let's have a look at what skills I've already used. And I can see instantly here for my very first part of my sentence, I've got the word immediately. Now, although I've not included it in my list down here, it's an adverb. So it's an adverbial opener. Immediately, it's got that ly suffix at the end of it. So immediately, the lonely soldier realised the severity of the situation. Now, severity comes from the word severe. When something is severe, it's pretty bad. So he's realised how bad this situation suddenly is. Now, I've included in here a colon, okay? Why might I have included a colon? Okay, so rather than using a conjunction and expanding on my sentence, I'm going to split my clauses up. So although I've got two main clauses here, I'm actually expanding, I'm adding additional information to that original clause. So it says here that he's realised the severity of the situation. So I'm going to explain, well, what is it that's made him realise the severity of this situation? So it then goes on to say the damp ruby patch on his friend's jacket. Now, ruby is the same as the colour red. So obviously the damp red is obviously the blood. He's obviously been shot, and that blood is now starting to seep out of his body. Usually when someone gets shot, there's a very high probability that they could die, and that is the severity of the situation. So that's how we've linked it back. So the damp ruby, I've got my expanded noun phrase on there, began to grow larger by the second. His mud-spattered bloody face. So although I've used a hyphenated word in there, and I've pinched that from previous lessons that I've already used, I've also got the idea of the blood that's all over his face. So it's all bloody and it's all spattered with mud. And it says his face drained of all colour. So he's going pasty and white. And his body went completely limp and still. So I've got my conjunction in there. I've got he went completely limp. So again, I've got another adjective in there. So how limp and still did he go? When someone goes limp, it's almost like their muscles stop. So if someone was to pick you up and you decide to go all numb and let all your muscles go and relax, you go limp. So your whole body almost like lacks in life and it goes still. And it says here like a suffering, wilting flower. Now that is a simile because I've used the word like. That's my key word in there. But I've also used amplification skill in here because I've used one of my synonyms, got the idea of suffering. Okay, so he was in pain. Okay, so I've linked the idea of pain. He was suffering like a wilting flower. Okay, so the next bit I'm going to write now is I want to explain, I'm going to focus on some of the different senses. So I'm going to focus on his breathing, on his movement, on his eyes. I'm going to focus on those different elements of his body that are slowly starting to shut down. So I'm really going to hone in on that emotive language, but really try to amplify the experience to the reader who is obviously learning all of this through the gentleman's flashback. So I'm going to explain about his breathing. So I need to think to myself, I know that he's breathing, but I know that there's potential because he's been shot in the chest because it's obviously on his jacket. So he's been shot somewhere on his upper body. There's potential this has done his lung. He's been shot in the lungs. So I know he's going to be coughing up lots of blood. Now I know that if I have liquid coming back up through my throat, be it if I'm drinking water and I've accidentally gone down the wrong part and it's gone down into my lungs instead, I'm going to start choking on that, especially if you're going to be lying down. So I might get myself a verb opener in there. So I'm going to have choking on his own blood. His breathing became erratic and shallow as he lay there. Now I've got my verb opener there, so choking on his own blood. Now it said his breathing became erratic and shallow. So when you breathe and it's very erratic, it's very out of control. So if he's breathing, he's not breathing at that normal pace that he would be. And when it's shallow, he can't take a deep breath. So if you imagine take a deep breath, you can fill up your entire lungs. But if it's shallow, it's very quick breathing. That's a very shallow breathing because you cannot fill up your entire lungs purely on the basis that he's potentially had a gunshot to his lungs. So his breathing became erratic and shallow. So I've got both of my adjectives in there. As he lay there, throbbing on the cold, damp ground. So again, I've gone back to my amplification. Well, how is he feeling? I want to link something in here with pain. So I added throbbing in there, and I've also got my expanded noun phrase of the cold, damp ground. Now that's just adding to the suffering that he's going through. If it was going to be a, nice warm sand on a summer's day, or it was going to be freshly cut grass, we're not honing in on that idea of the tragedy that is unfolding, in front of us. So I've gone for my dark, my cold words. Okay, these aren't particularly pleasant words. These are quite negative, descriptive words. So I've got cold, damp. So I've got my expanded noun phrase in there. So now I need to be thinking about, well, what could I potentially describe next? Okay, so he's obviously been shot. He's now hit the ground, and the other soldier can see what's happening. So maybe he's going to try and grab his attention. So you might want to then call over to him. So I want to see if I can get myself a relative clause in there. What does a relative clause start with? Good, relative pronoun. Now, if we're talking about someone, what might the appropriate relative pronoun be? It could be who, what, which, where, that. Good, it could be who. So he calls over to his comrade, who was what. We need to describe something of what he might have been doing on the ground. Now, obviously he's lying there. Now, I know he's going to be in pain. And one of my other words that we looked at for pain was hurt. So he could be hurting. But more importantly, we know that he's bleeding as well. So we might want to hone in the idea that he's dying, okay? But do you think at this point in time he's now going to be responding? No, because he's probably to the point where he's about to completely die. He's about to lose his life. So we need to try and put that together into a sentence. So let's try and add in our relative pronoun. I'm going to add it as an embedded clause. I'm going to put it in the middle. Okay, so he called over to his comrade. So his comrade is his friend. Now I've got my comma there, okay, who was just lying there, hurt and bleeding, but he did not respond. Now here you can see I've got who was just lying there, hurt and bleeding. So that is where I've got my relative pronoun here for who. And I've got both my commas here as well, okay? So you need to imagine if I took out those commas and that sentence in between, my sentence would be, he called over to his comrade, but he did not respond. So I've added additional information of how he was feeling. Equally though, like we said with the amplification, I've added there that he was hurt and bleeding. So again, I've gone from suffering to throbbing pain to hurt. I'm really honing in on that idea that he is in pain, okay? But then I've also got here my conjunction there, but he did not respond. So now again, I'm even linking this further back to the severity. He's now realised he's not responding. There's nothing to say that he's now gone completely, okay? So the next sentence that we need to think about now is another way to describe how we might be looking. So we might want to focus on looking at his eyes. So what could be happening to his eyes now? And then we need to think, well, what's his body now doing? He's now he's very much in the last stages of, he's dying now, okay? So we need to think about what might be happening to his body and those last moments that he's got in life. So what I want you to do is I want you to have a go at writing in the next part of that sentence about what might be happening to his eyes, what might be happening to his hands, if he's twitching, if his eyelids have gone heavy, what's his body doing trying to fight that pain? Has he stopped breathing? Has he completely stopped moving? I want you to pause the video and I want you to have a go at writing that last sentence on your own, okay? Off you go. Okay, so let me show you what I've then put on here. So his eyelids looked heavy and fluttered every so often as his body fought against the pain that tortured him in his last final moment of life. So I've got his eyelids here is feeling heavy and fluttered, so I've got my conjunction in there. Every so often, so he's not doing it regularly like someone who was alive would be. And his body fought against the pain. So against there is my preposition. So I haven't been able to get a preposition in there as of such, okay? Other than like your simple ones of on, okay? Or began to grow by the second. So I have got some other prepositions in there, but this one is that he's fighting against the pain. Okay, so the pain that tortured him in his last final moment. So tortured there, got my amplification. Although I've used the word pain, I've expanded on that. I've really exaggerated the fact that it's torturing him. So his body fought against the pain that tortured him in the last final moments. Now we know when it's the last and the final. I've just repeated. Again, I've used two different synonyms there for it being his last and final moments of life. I've really honed in on that emotive language there, that this is it. This is the end of his life. So you can see, looking at these examples here, we've used adverbs, We've got a colon in there for additional punctuation. Expanded noun phrases, we've used our amplification skills of pain. We've got a simile in there, we've got our verb openers, we've got our conjunctions, and we've got that additional repetition right here at the end of 2 separate words to really hone in on that this is it. This is the final part that this man's going to experience, okay? So your task now is you're going to continue writing it. So you need to write effectively your version of this, okay? So you can magpie some of my ideas, but I want you to make it yours. And I'll know if you've made it yours because I'll be able to see it when you send it in to me. So you're going to write your second part of the paragraph, but you need to then continue on to writing the final bit. So I've not written the full paragraph for you yet. So use the descriptive vocabulary that we've looked at. Think about the word banks that you created during the lesson and think about the amplification techniques as well. Now, you may want to repeat words instead of using synonyms. That's entirely up to you. You know how to do it because you did it before half term. And also use your emotive language as well. Now, what you need to do is want you to then finish off the paragraph. So you need to finish your paragraph to the point where he's scooping his friend up into his arms. Now, at that point in time, I think when I've written it, which I'll show you tomorrow, I added another 4 or 5 sentences onto the paragraph that I've just written here for you. So if anything, that's only 2/3 of the paragraph. I had at least another 4 or 5 sentences on the end of that. So you need to make sure that you expand on yours as well. Now, for those of you that were in Group B yesterday and you did the work that I set you from yesterday, you're going to do exactly the same thing and rewrite your paragraph. Well, not rewrite, but you're going to write your own paragraph and finish it in the same way. But you need to make sure you've written it from your first person perspective, okay? So you're still writing it from the point of view of the old man back in his flashback, okay? So again, you need to remember to use your amplification techniques and also want you to try to include a simile or a metaphor, okay? Now, I would also like you to see a variety of sentence structures. Now, that goes for those of you in Group A as well. You know how to do your different sentence structures. You know how to move your subordinate clauses around. You're very good at multi-clausal sentences, okay? And you can definitely think of different sentence openers as well, okay? Now, you also need to finish off your paragraph with the man scooping his friend up into his arms as well. Now, you've got the toolkit on here to help you as well, okay? See if you can include a colon in there. Okay, or even include a dash. I know that those of you in Group B, you should all be able to have a go at doing that. Remember, you're just expanding on the point that you're making, so see if you can include some variations of the punctuation as well. Okay, so have a go at writing your paragraphs and see how you get on, and then we will pick this up from tomorrow's lesson. Okay, good luck, Year 5.